Hello there and welcome back to War Thunder. Today I want to talk about the T26E1-1, and when I say that I want to talk about the tank, I mean it. So this is a bit of rambling for probably 10-12 minutes in the hangar before I actually show you some gameplay about this tank. Now, it is quite an interesting history when we talk about the Superpershing within War Thunder and how it stacks up to not just the competition on the battlefield, but also within its own tech tree. It is kind of a very visible symptom of a greater problematic within War Thunder called how battle ratings are assigned to tanks and planes. And the Superpershing in particular is just a very good example that I think the majority of people understand, and it is a heavy tank at 6.7 and it suffers a power creep fate. But even when this tank was introduced to fill the gap between the Jumbo Sherman with the 76mm gun and the T32, it was not really up to the competition of the Tiger II and hell even the Panther II back in the days when Germany had a really strong 6.7 lineup, and game mechanics were different. There were not all techniques in the game that we have now, like autoloader, stabilizer, heat FS, all the stuff that was not really in the game. However, even back in the days, the T26E1-1, aka the Superpershing, was a bit of a disappointment, and it is the combination of firepower, mobility, but in particular the armor. I will talk about it in a little bit of detail. Don't confuse this with a tank review, because I don't have the footage for it to really show you the strength of the tank, but I can show you a lot of weaknesses if I would. But where does it all start? So first of all, we have a medium called the M26 Pershing at 6.3 battle rating, and it's a solid but rather unimpressive medium tank. 6.3 is the battle rating, features a short 90mm, 9.1 seconds is the reload, 500 horsepower has the engine, and we are a bit below 42 tons. Then we come to a premium medium tank, the M26E1, very similar to the name, and it's a medium tank at 6.7 that features a long 90mm, the T54 cannon. Now it's getting interesting, because if you look at the ammunition, AP shot 217, AP HE shot 204, and HVAP 270mm of penetration, with a reload of 11.8 seconds. I'm comparing here my own stats, so the expert qualifications. The crew should be equally skilled if I have not screwed up. However, now comes the real bummer, and that is the T26E1-1 Superpershing. Features also a long 90mm T15 E1 cannon, and when we have a look at the ammunition, it's copy paste, so same penetration values. However, for some bizarre reason, nearly 1.5 seconds longer reload, and we are nearly 50 tons heavy, so nearly 8 tons heavier than the original medium tank, but we have the same horsepower to ton ratio. That results in the tank being very sluggish, really underpowered, and not really maneuverable. So yeah, it's a heavy tank, but what about the armor? You see, below this masquerade we still have the M26 armor, so 100mm, effective thickness around about 140 to 120mm, however you look at it, machine gun port and this part being flat and weak spots, lower glacis being weak spot, turret face not really convincing, and also we have a little bit of overlay, but also not really that great, with even cupola to hit. And then the T26E1 has the very same, but additionally on top of this we have those Mickey Mouse ears and also a rolled homogeneous armor plating of 80mm in the front of it. So we are looking at around about 200mm of turret armor on the flat parts. Your competition just blasts through. The 20 pounder would, if you would face it on the battlefield. The long 88 has no problems, and even the Russian 100, 122mm, or even the long barreled 85mm on the Object 906 will go through this like butter. However, the convincing part should be, well, the hull. Well, you also don't forget, please, that you have all these weak parts around the turret here that have no additional spaced armor. So the turret is not really that strong despite, all the tracks and all this add-on armor. It just really doesn't work. The hull, however, we have some doubled layer add-on armor. So we have 3 layers of armor, all are 38.1mm thick. And if we would believe the effective thickness of, well, between 60 and 70mm on the first layer and around about 60mm on the second layer, together with the 130mm, we would go roughly, however you would see it, from 220, 230 to up to 270mm of a combined thickness. However, game mechanics in War Thunder say no, and everybody blasts right through. Long 88, 122mm, 100mm shells. The majority of parts of these tanks are just butter to enemy guns, and the survivability, despite having a 5-man crew, 3 of which are in the turret, is not that convincing, despite the majority of shells being rather at the bottom. So take out, what is that, 17 shells, take out 17 shells from your 42 rounds, so you're left with around about 25 rounds here in the bottom, and you have the maximum amount of shells with the maximum of survivability. This tank just simply doesn't work, but that's not really the end of the story, is it? That was just a mini tank review for you, just as an eye candy, because this tank has the same reload as the T29 Premium Heavy Tank. And this is where the controversy really starts, because this tank was introduced and it beat the hell out of the Tiger II. The IS-6 was not introduced, and it has a 105mm gun with, well, the same reload. But let's have a look at the ammunition. So bigger caliber, more penetration, more post-penetration damage effect on the APBC round, the T32, then also the T13 APCBC APHE round has not just more penetration, but also a higher caliber and more TNT equivalent, resulting in more devastating one-shots. And even the APCR is a bit more usable, question mark, with 315mm of penetration. Then we also have much better armor, much better survivability. We are more mobile. In every single respect, the T29 is better than the Superpershing, aside from the turret rotation speed and probably the gun elevation. And except that, the tank has no advantage. And both have the same battle rating. You might say, clear case of pay to win. Not really, because the T29 is in a big competition to the Tech Tree T34, which is the last of the heavy tank additions to the American Tech Tree. It looks very similar to the T29, and it has a 120mm gun that is, able to fire the T14E3 round. Devastating. A lot of shrapnels, good penetration. It feels really brutal. 15.8. So that's the reload rate. Compare this to the Superpershing, 13.2. So 2.6 seconds longer reload between the long-barreled 90mm on the Superpershing and the T34 with the 120mm gun. Why the hell this tank is 6.7 is beyond me. And I have to tell you right away, in comparison to even the IS-2 Mod 1944, the Carnarvon and the Tiger II, this tank is the weakest in this comparison throughout the nations, throughout the entire tech tree itself. And it's just overshadowed by also a few nice medium tanks, like these days even the M26T99 with the fixed rockets, at least when I tested it, the M26E1, then also a lot of the light tanks, of which we have 4 at 6.7 these days. M56 Scorpion, T92, M50 Ontos, and T114. They might be classified as tank destroyers, but they are equally light tanks. And I think this just shows what this tank's problem is. So it's not really good at 6.7, and you really feel it in any sort of light or full up tier, even to 7.7, where I really have to ask myself, how the hell should you be effectively competitive? Yes, you can make the tank work. You still have an APHE round that does a lot of damage. It's at the end of the day still an American 90mm. It does the job. But to go into position, to get out of a position or a situation, to survive a return shot, it's awful. To drive the tank for a day or two makes you nuts, effectively. It could be worse, yes, but it also could definitely much better. So without further ado, let's hop into some gameplay. So the first battle is here on Abandoned Factory, and I want to show you a complete steamroll of the enemy team and what my part was in that battle. Right away, the result on my end will not be spectacular, but the overall result will be really nice, and I can point out some things. So first of all, you can see even on flat, hard underground, the tank is just not very convincing with the acceleration. A horsepower to ton ratio of 10 is less than of a Tiger 2, and it really feels sluggish. It really sometimes refuses to accelerate, and you can see the top speed of 40 kilometers an hour, and the tank just needs a little bit of, you know, rolling down the hill, not the steepest inclination or declination, whatever. You see, now the tank looks okayish, but when you just hit something, any sort of object, might it be a pole, might it be a tree, the tank is just losing so much energy. I know that this has been recently a problem for a lot of tanks, but in particular for this tank, you know, 50 tons heavy, I expect a bit more momentum, and it just doesn't retain the energy. You know, to quote your aircraft, it has bad energy retention, and you really feel it. It's underpowered in terms of the engine, and to go into preferable situation is always, yeah, questionable. In many situations, many of those kills I could have done, especially in the same way with the M26. You know, the normal medium tank at 6.3. So we are bypassing A, and I go my usual route to farm here some tanks that just you know, go to capture B, hide myself behind the building, possibly get some shots into the direction of C. As you can see, my team is actually very well distributed, and they're cleaning up the kills. And yeah, tire, and I lost a lot of speed. Some tires on the road, it's just remarkable. It's really not a nice feeling to drive this tank. I think I saw a tank there, but I didn't see any sort of action. Now I see the message: a Tiger 1 just killed a T-34-85. Blasphemy. And we have to correct that, and we have the Avenger medal now. So I look into C, but it seems like my team has cleared out. The kill messages just go in our favor, on and on. Our team is steamrolling the enemy. We have 2 out of the 3 captures. I'm not really interested in B. I see now a Panzer IV, and if I would have enough time, I could, you know, straighten out. Now I see that he rotates the turret, but it was too late. He just got killed by an I6, if I see that correctly. My preview window is rather small, and that's the battle. No, I'm not kidding. So with the Superpershing, you're also in very great need of making the kills early on, because very often your team steamrolls the enemy team, and there is nothing left for you to do, or your team gets steamrolled very quickly. And so gun with not the greatest but still okayish damage output but with a pretty long reload for that caliber, unusually long, especially in comparison, it's just not the very best tool. And the sluggishness of the tank, it's just not all that nice. So we now are in possession of all 3 capture zones. Enemy team has lost all of its vehicles. So this match took around about 4 minutes. 4 minutes of gameplay, and now I want to show you the results and want to just clarify something. If you are hardcore grinding, you want to have the short games. I didn't do much, I didn't capture a point, I just killed, I guess, 2 tanks, yeah, there we go, and I got 10,000 silver lines, you know, the usual tank RB joke, and 1500 score points. Now that's just in 4 minutes. If you play 20 minutes, do you think that you get 5 times as much for tanks? I doubt it. I doubt it. So now I want to come to the penetration power of the shell and what I have in terms of difficulties. This is a very nice little scene here on Berlin, and we're just coming out of the spawn area, and I just want to go probably into B and see what I can do there. So I see some enemy action going on, some tanks moving by, and it is an IS-2 mod 1944 with the nice cage around versus the small heat shells. So I pre-aim and I wait for him to come, and I want to give him a nice side shot. There he comes, nice rendering Gaijin, and okay. What was that? So the shell gets here eaten up by the optics? Okay, gotcha. So that is practically a waste of a easy kill, I guess. I was not really happy about this at the time that it happened, but oh well, what can you do? You're playing War Thunder, I guess. And we have another candidate. What is that? Is that an I6? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So I hit the cupola, and again the optics eat it up, so thank you very much, Gaijin, again. But what can you do? I mean, then A is also lost. I want to go now into B, and one thing that I have not mentioned is the big gun breach of this tank. So a lot of people aiming for the turret front, and rightfully so, and then they hit those this rather big cannon breach and make it black, and you know, long repair times, probably also go through the reload, you're out of action for quite some time. So usually you should stick around with your team. And then this happened, and it's quite amusing, so I show it anyways. Yeah, I pulled the trigger the same second that the heat shell hit me. So this battle here is again on Cologne, or Advanced to the Rhine, whatever you want to call it. And we have a first customer, Panther 2, side shot, easy, good job. Could have done this in, I guess, the most of other tanks as well, with an APHE round. So now let's retreat a little bit, let's check the situation. I receive a shot from the side, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Now I just saw the enemy tank there, and it is a Panther F. So he wants to retreat behind the building, he bounces shell on me, and I still managed to hit the turret front on him. But please notice how the gun breach was not destroyed and how he actually got not one shot. So I think with a T29 I would have one-shotted him. I usually do this, but now look at this again. Emptying the turret, slightly damaging the gun breach, and also hitting the transmission. Don't ask me, I'm just, you know, I'm here for the lols. And we plant another shell through the turret front, killing the gunner, killing the tank. 3 shots, 1 kill so far. The other tank is still disabled. I reload in the open, exposing the side of my tank because I need to finish the tank, and I have now 4 shots, 2 kills. I want to roll into cover, but then I get blown up. And with a T29, I would have gotten through the situation quicker with probably one-shots and would not have exposed the site to the Tiger II SLA-16. So, and this is now the final battle scene that I want to show you, and it is on Eastern Europe. The thing is, this tank is actually in its origin a medium tank, so let's flank, let's go to the other riverside. And please watch the speed, watch how I maneuver, watch how long it takes me to get to the position. And this tank is a bit frustrating to play. Now, in its basic stats, when you look at that you have an APHE shot, it's not extremely awful. But compared to its composition or opposition, its rivalries in the tech tree, and so many other aspects, when you get up tiered with your limitations in terms of firepower and reload speed and armor and mobility, the tank is not very good. I'm sorry about this, but I think 6.3 for this tank in the current meta would be appropriate. However, it should be kind of the counterpart to the Tiger II. If the Tiger II would be nerfed, which it is thanks to the fuel tank explosions compared to when the Superpershing was introduced. And yes, this lamppost brought me to a complete standstill. I hate that. I hate how sluggish the tank is, how sometimes on flat, hard terrain it refuses to accelerate, and it's just so god-awful. So I did not really play the tank with the enthusiasm that I play a T29 or an IS-2 with. Tanks that do their job, basically. They have their different playstyle, you have to adapt to it, you have to know the strengths and weaknesses of each single tank, but in short, this tank has too many weaknesses. It has not the bite of some other heavy tanks. Now, to name this, to just simply, how should I say it, bad shot by me, to state problems of a tank is not a bad thing. It is just, pointing it out. So a new tanker that just researched this tank and had not that many problems with the American tech tree before might find himself in a situation where now he thinks, am I not good for this high battle rating? This is my first 6.7 American tank. It's a Superpershing. I know it from basically another game called World of Tanks, where the armor is so good. Am I bad? Is this game bad? What the hell? What I'm doing wrong? This battle was very lucky, so I was playing it a bit stupid, but I still got the nice result. So in a nutshell, you have a different learning curve. This tank throws away many aspects that American tanks have before that, where they have quick reload, where especially the Sherman variants have either their low tier stabilizer versions, or you have some really fast light tanks such as the Hellcat. It's a tank destroyer. Oh, shut up. It's a light tank with a 76mm gun that does the job. So you actually go into the complete opposite with this tank, and it's not so spectacular. It's not that good. Yeah, that's actually the Superpershing. So it not just got this tank power creeped, but it was not that spectacular to begin with, and that leaves you with a tank that is not very popular within War Thunder. Now, one thing that I have to give the tank is the spaced add-on armor that actually is very good against Hesh, and that's an argument. Nice shot here through the lower glacis. But think about this again. It absorbs Hesh. First of all, there are still enough parts of the tank where you can hit with Hesh and still kill the tank because there is no spaced armor. And you can also switch to APDS if you're in the British tank, which are the tanks that mostly fire Hesh. And all other tanks that fire Hesh throughout all other nations are not that popular. It's very unpopular to fire a Hesh shell with an with a 90mm Hesh round. on the RE251, on maybe the Japanese tanks, which are also rather rare guests on the battlefield. And yeah, you also don't face the British, do you? So that one argument that the tank really has, I think even against very big hash shells, is it never gets tested, right? And I know just this from test shooting, and I actually don't know if Gaijin has done anything about it. So look at the minimap. Guess why I had a good game? First of all, I was taking out 2 tanks that were there in the front or the flank, and they bounced on me. They didn't find the weak spots, which is good for me, and the team has completely collapsed. The enemy tanks have killed our entire team. I saw for a split second that there is a Tiger 2. I want to mark him with the machine gun. I'm a bit higher. We have the sight and we get a nice shot on a Tiger 2 Henschel. So now there is this Panther and I want to blind him, but he pens my turret. And now I have 50 seconds repair time. My gunner gets back into position. My turret ring is damaged. My gun is still loaded and he sticked it to the same place. This is why I could plant a 90mm shell through the side of a Panther, and in good German fashion he violently exploded. So I see another tank and I'm not quite sure if I can make the reload. However, think about it. I still had to go through the reload. That was the reason why the Panther actually could shoot me. And this Panther gladly bounced and I could finish him because the turret ring was repaired first. This 76mm Sherman could actually in theory penetrate me, but he has some problems to shoot behind the bush, to shoot behind the fence, and so I actually can blind him, and frontally I have a good chance by moving the tank, and then we get another kill. But those are tanks that actually made it easy for me to kill them. But with a normal M26, except for the very 2 first engagements, I could have killed them without actually receiving a shot. So in this situation the armor was there, but in the majority of cases it actually is not that useful, if I'm honest with you. So what can I do right now? The enemy team is now already spawn camping, and now I got taken out by a Tiger 2 Henschel after 6 kills from across the map. That's the Superpershing. Let me know what you think about this tank, because I don't think that it is the best tank that is out there, and it never was, and it needs a little bit of love, and I don't know if you can improve the reload stats or make the armor work with a new game mechanic. And I don't know what you can do for this tank, but compared to the T29 and the T34, it has nothing to do at 6.7 if you're asking me. And it is more similar to a Tiger 2 Porsche than to the Tiger 2 Henschel, if I'm honest with you. So yeah, I'm actually recommending a battle rating reduction to 6.3, like with the Tortoise, because not just the Tortoise but also the Superpershing need a bit of love. That's it from me today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more, and we will see each other on the battlefields and in the skies of War Thunder.